Okay, guys, back with you here. We're going to look at the euro as you guys are letting me pick this one. Now, it's kind of interesting contrast between the two videos. So the gold video I just put up, I was emphasizing how you can do just fine without Elliott Wave, right? So it's not essential. Is it useful? Absolutely. But I wanted to take you through a series of some technical trading that didn't rely on Elliott Wave. Well, here we have something different happening. Here, the premise behind the trade is tied to the Elliott count. So kind of giving you both looks at it here. So to get a handle on where we are here, which I'm going to get there, right? So, but before we do it, and I strongly, I remind you every time I can, when you're looking at FX, you have got to go out to the longer term, daily as a minimum. In this case, to really get a handle on where the longer term count is, excuse me, you have to go out to the 3-day, right? So I can go all the way back here to, well, this is where we're going back to 2000 here on O&A. So I'm using this pivot we put up here in 08 and working my way down, right? So from that high, I've got us going into an ABC. There's the W, ABC into our X. I get a clear 5 down into my A, ABC into my B, and then I propose to you this X is, we're resolving the WXY with this ABC. So from here, we've gone 5 down, 3 over, and we've gone down to complete the Y here and the C at this pivot low. So does that make sense? Well, the 5 is a little tricky down here, but of course now we have the benefit of knowing what came after. So because I get such a clear impulse here, I lean into this as the low of the 5 because the count just it wouldn't make sense any other way. So I do think we have a solid low here relative to that WXY. And as a matter of fact, I think barring, well, there is an alternate here. So if we do this, if we go A, B, C, that would be potentially another X before going down for a final ABC into a WXY XZ. So, right. So Elliott, guys, I know, I understand that's a possibility. But as we sit right now with this as a technical low and a very, cannot miss the impulse coming off of this low, the reason I think there's a trade here is because of what's followed from that. So I'm going to go from the 3-day back to the daily so we can get a better look at this. So this impulse, there is no way to call this anything other than a completed impulse. Well, that's what sets up the trade. So wait a second, I got to show you this here. So if I go back, oh shit, I lost myself. Here we go. Okay, so if I go back to this pivot here, all right, so why do we stop up there? Why do we stop? All right, so why does this impulse end here? Well, there's a couple of reasons, but the fact that we run into the golden zone here, and I think as I recall, all right, we had an algo target here. So this is using the length of the 2. There's the in between the 23 and the 38 Vegas wave. Up they go, they get target. Okay, so we're stuck. We're stuck really here. So here's the dominant pressure as we complete that 5-wave sequence. Right. So what is it? Is it a 1? It could be. Could be an A, right? We don't really know just yet. But the 5-wave structure is absolutely can't miss it. All right, well, we know likely why we stopped up here. Okay, so we've got that. Now coming back the other direction from just, simple stuff here, guys. Right, so what do we have here? We're just caught in a fib fight. So from swing low, swing high, we run into a golden zone here, come all the way down. We've just tagged the golden zone to the tick. All right, so you can say, okay, you're just in a big, fat, fib fight here from one golden zone to the next, right? So how do you trade it? Well, here again, now here's where the Elliott can be helpful. So because I've come down, I've got this clear impulse, I'm anticipating an ABC. So I'm looking for 3-wave structure. Well, I get a very clear 5 coming down. Right? Process of elimination, hard to call that anything other than an A. Well, I do get 3 here, right? So I get the ABC counter corrective action here that sets up the B wave, except it's shallow, right? It's a 38. So the potential here is that we've got another move down here to have us finish this ABC on the assumption that that is correctly identified as the B. Well, so just to put it into context of where the algos are, right? So here's our 38 clear 5 down. Here's your 38. Now we got targets. So here's the first algo target, second, third. As long as we stay above this pivot here, we have the potential for an internal retracement, right? Swing low, swing high. We stay above this pivot, we have an internal retracement. So the 5 down, boy, again, you know, again, I'm on a daily. Let me go 12-hour here. Really, really hard to call that anything else. It's just, oh, pardon me, this is over here. So we've got a little, well, is it? Nope, it's here, right? So we got a little ABC. Let me clean this up a little bit so you can see it better. So here's the premise that we've got an A. Now this is a shallow, it's a 34 for the B, but very clear 3-wave structure. So 5 down, 3 to correct it. Now here's why I think there's a trade here. So if this is correctly identified as the B, right, you can see a nice clear ABC. Well, we go into a series of diagonals here, right, which is kind of interesting and very technical. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gives me a 1 wave here. So I get a leading diagonal into this proposed 1 wave, right? So we're looking for something technical, always with a diagonal between the start of the 1, the pivot of the 3. Well, we get the 38. Right? Ideally, you'd look for it at the 50, right? It doesn't have the legs to get there. Now this, I did check these, and so this, while the 1 is longer than the 3, right? So we look here, so here would be 100% of the 1. In actual fact, the 3 is not the shortest, because if I do the same thing here, we look at the length of the 3 relative to the 5, right? So the 5 is shorter than the 3rd, so the extension's in the 1. Not uncommon in a diagonal. So we get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the 1. Right, now here, A looks like A, B, C into my 2. So from that pivot, this is the start of the 1. All right, so where are we looking for the 2? Anywhere between the 50 and the 618. So a candidate here, a candidate for the 2 off of the ABC structure. So if that's my 2, and this is correctly identified as an A, the B is in, the 1 leading diagonal is in, the ABC of the 2 is in, well, now I'm looking for an impulse, but I don't get it. What I get is, I get, again, another leading diagonal, which implies a 1 wave, right? We can't, well, I suppose there's another way to count this here, but if I have time here, we'll look at the alternate here. But I'm proposing that we're in the midst of doing this. 1, 2, yet again 1, 2, right? That would be very bearish. So if 1, 2 is in, well, we're looking for an impulse. What do we get? We get a diagonal. Implies another 1, 2. Well, is it technical? So from the length of the 1, well, first we look for the sequence here. From the start of the 1 wave within this leading diagonal. Now here's a better example here. We're looking for the reaction at the 50. Now front run, hard to say. It's a pretty good move off of the proposed 5. Now here we get a little spike that goes through. So the sell side algo is lost here as the proposed 2, but per the Elliott count, it doesn't invalidate this as a 2, right? Anywhere from 50, 7, 8, 6 is high probability zone. So we have a candidate for a 1, 2. Now, if that's the 1, 2, right, yet again, we're still at some point in here, if we're going to finish like this, we need an impulse. So 1, 2, well, I take that back. We could finish with a larger diagonal because it's a C wave. So we could have a 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and finish as a diagonal. But right now, within the subdivision here, I'm looking for an impulse if I can find it. So if we've got 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Well, now can't say it for sure, right? Because if this is the 2, we don't have great 3-wave subdivision here. But what have we done? We've just hit a 50. So you've got to go down. Let me go to a 4-hour here. We can see that subdivision a little bit better. So from this, so the weakest part of it as relates to the subdivision is this part here, because we've got to call this an ABC. So to get that to play as my 2, I've got to go A, shallow B into the C. Now the alternate would be that we've just done A, pardon me, that this is, come here, let me get rid of that. Okay, so is that the ABC, or if that 5 is in, we could have more complexity. So we could have, we could be doing, oh shit, come here. Oh, I want. So if this is 1, if this is A, B, C, we could have more in that 2 wave. Again, if this is 1 and we're putting in the 2. So it's hard to say. So the reason you second guess just a little bit, right, you question, is because the subdivision here is not great on the BC. So cautiously looking at that, saying, well, I can get that to work, but that would be a very shallow C. So understanding the possibility here that there could be more complexity in this, I still think there's a trade here. So from the low to the pivot here, well, we've just tagged the 50, right? So if that is going to play, we have a candidate here now for a corner pocket, right? So there's the pivot. Now we get, right, as I always will remind you, best odds in trading. When you get a corner pocket, and the caveat here is I need to remind you guys here, get it right on that. Shit, come here. Right on it. Okay, so we have 80% probability of making the median line. Now as it sits up here, can we get there that fast? Well, maybe not. Looks like if we're gonna move at a, unless there's an event that would cause it, it's going to be very hard for us to get down here and make the median line. So one possibility is they're using other pivots. So it might be more like it could be a channel because of the extreme nature of these swings, right? This is so I mean, look at the size of these swings, right? It's not just a nice clear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are big swings, right? Common in diagonals, right? That you're seeing that. Thus, why you're looking for a 50 between the start of the 1, the pivot of the 4. But I can complete this 1 here. Now this, yeah, I recognize that's a little questionable, right? So question mark here. Is the 2 in? Or is this just A? We're going to do an A, B, C. We're going to get a deep, more complexity in the 2. Remember, we can't have a triangle here, but we could have a more complexity in the A, B, C. So if that's going to play differently, maybe they use something else. Maybe something like that would put it into play. Could be here. We just don't know yet. It's too soon to call it. Well, so this one, right? This corner pocket realized right there. This. We go in here again. We need a little more price data here. But the trade here is off of the idea that we've gone 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm short off of the 50 here. I want this. All right. At this point, my stop is here. All right. So just after that first target, right? Here's a 12-to-1 trade. Now, note here, if that is the 1, if this is the 1 and this is the 2, that target, if that's going to go into a full 3, if we're going to get an impulse here, the potential here is much lower. But if that is realized, I'd certainly be looking to take at least a partial here on this, anticipating there'll be some sort of reaction there. But if it's going to be 1, 2, and we're going to get a full 3, well, the target for the third is down here, right? We know the shorthand that the negative 100 will be very close to the 1618. So if this goes 1, 2, and we get the impulse here, well, with target down here of 109, we're sitting here 113 and change. Well, 113 and change is my fault. So if that's 1, 2, so I guess the point I'm trying to make here is it's not too late to get into that trade, right? If we're going down here, you got plenty of room. So you could take it now, sitting right here, wait for a little pullback, stop under the pivot. As it sits right now, there's 4-to-1. If we're going down here, if we're going to get that, well, there's 9-to-1. Right, it's just a question of, are you comfortable with that risk? So because it's a little bit late, since we've already had the reaction there, you can reduce the size. Right, so if we're trading in FX, right, so you can go to you can use the minis and get a size that's appropriate for your account size and your risk tolerance and your trading plan, etc. But if we get something like that, you got a very nice looking trade. Even here is about 4-to-1, right? And that's assuming you're going to use this pivot as the stop, which seems reasonable because we're trying to set up. We've got a potential corner pocket, so we know. Remember the caveat is if these pivots hold. If these pivots hold, 80% probability of making that median line at some point down here. That could be way down here. We don't know. May be that we'd have to move to a modifier or look for a different set of pivots to try and get there. But right now, I think because of the Elliott count, there's definitely a short trade here to be played, and it's, you know, we're not trying to thread the needle here and get the exact turn of it here. I think there is time. You could still be going short here. Understanding, now what's the first thing you're going to run into? Let me clean this up. What's the first thing you're going to run into? I'm assuming you guys know what I'm about to do. Okay, so from this pivot, right, we know it's always a fib fight, always an algo fight. This is the first thing this trade is going to run into is, if I can get it back here, this. Okay, so if this is, so let me put the count back on here. So if this is, come here. If that's 1, 2, and we're going to go 3, 4, 5. Okay, well, how it's not going to go straight. So if this is going to be potentially, now these are areas where we might establish the one wave of the third wave. So looking for reaction points doesn't, you know, so if we react here at this golden zone, it doesn't kill the trade. Ideally, you'd see this break the buy side algo, at least off of this pivot. Now you got nothing working against you. So if we get through this, then you start to look better, and that's a point where you might reduce the risk on the trade. So you've got much lower risk yet, you can go to break even. If you get here, because it's very, very reasonable to anticipate you might get some sort of a rebound there. So, you know, general rule of thumb, you don't want to let a winner turn into a loser. Excuse me, God damn these allergies. I'd rather get stopped out at break even if I had to, right? Then let something get away from me that was nicely ahead turn into a loser. I'd rather take the scratch trade myself. That's me. I'll take the scratch because I'd be very quick to go again if I like the setup. What I see now, I'm on a 4-hour. So if I get down on a smaller time frame, get a little retrace, I'll go again because I know I've got a big fat target down here. But first up 50, then the 618. This starts to get some traction. So this is not a shorter term trade. This would be something that could be 2 weeks, 2 months. Right, clearly defined, right? Now, this based off of using both the algo pulls, some market geometry, and an Elliott count that would suggest that there's more lows to come. Right, so definitely here's your stop initially for the possibility, right? Understand what we're watching against, that this does something like this, A, B, and we go C, then we go down, right? So that's the counter of this that could move the 2 up here, right? If that were going to do that, but still we'd have the same Elliott count, right? The count wouldn't change; it would just kind of move over. So all of this would move over, right? The 3 likely would move over. The target going to change a little bit, but you'd still be trading this as a 1, A, B, C into the 2, looking for the big drop on the 3. God damn it! So sorry, guys. God, I went to California for a week, never had this problem, not for a single day. As soon as I get back, fucking allergies again. All right, guys, I'm sorry for that. It drives me crazy. I'm sure it drives you all crazy too. All right, so there you go. I'll be back with one more, but that's, you know, one to consider. All right, talk to you in a bit.